military that he can order to do horrible things just to get done what Trump wants done today. And he comes across, I'm sorry, as a badass, and he will show you what he's going to do. One of the things is
okay. That's Sue there in Ohio. Let's hear from David in Georgia, Republican line. Go ahead.
Hey, sir, how you doing?
Fine, sir. Go ahead.
So I am 23 years old. So I started working at the end of the Donald Trump administration in 2016, and I work through the Biden administration now. And going back into the Trump administration today, I have noticed a vast difference in how far my money goes. I'm really looking forward to what he's going to do this presidency, and hopefully this country can get back to the way it was financially, and hopefully we can get back to peace and we can end all the troubles that we are having around the world. Hopefully this IRS thing will work out for us in the good. I just want us to be able to be independent and this country to be strong. And that's really it. That's all I really wanted to say.
Pennsylvania Avenue here in Washington, D.C., lined with officers as part of the process of when the president leaves St. John's, leaves the White House, heads to the Capitol, part of the protective services that are out and about in Washington, D.C. today. Natalie in Lynchburg, Virginia, independent line. Natalie in Virginia, hello.
Manley.
You're on, sir. Go ahead.
Manley. Yes, just want to comment on veterans care. Nobody has mentioned about anything about veterans care and health care for the United States citizens. I'm a disabled veteran, and I just wonder what Mr. Trump might be on his agenda for better veterans care.
Doug Collins, the former Republican representative from Georgia, set to become the next head of the Veterans Affairs Administration after his confirmation process. Kirsten in Ohio, Democrats line. Good morning. You're next up.
Good morning. I was just calling in. I haven't heard anybody thank President Trump and Vice President Kamala for their service. They are true public servants. They kept our government quiet so we could live our lives. And I'm very, I wish the Supreme Court that they would look at things through a nonpartisan lens. And Eileen Cannon, you're a terrible, terrible judge.
Kirsten in Ohio thanks a portion of today's inauguration ceremony dedicated to highlighting President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris as part of the process. Craig, well, let me tell you the phone line. So we've been going on. Normally, this show ends at 10 o'clock. We are continuing on in our inauguration coverage, clear up until the time the ceremony starts, and you can still watch it on C-SPAN and our platforms. But up until then and the start of that program, your calls, getting information about the day, hearing from people in and about Washington, D.C. 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and independents, 202-748-8002. You can also, if you want, you can send us a text at 202-748-8003. Typically, we show you newspapers from across the United States, giving the headlines of the day. Sometimes in the Washington, D.C. area, there are several newspapers across the United States today focusing on Inauguration Day, Arizona Republic. This is their front page. This is the headline, highlighting the fact of today's holiday, celebrating Martin Luther King Jr., but their main section of the paper, this is day one. This is from the Arizona Republic. Moving on to the News Journal. This is a paper based out of Delaware, the current president's home state. Their front page, again, highlighting Martin Luther King Jr., a shift in perspective is how they're covering that. If you go across the United States and keep on going there, the Miami Herald, the president's home state of Florida, this is the Miami Herald. Their lead towards the right of your screen, defiance yields to deference as Trump returns to a changed capital city, is how they're going with the headline this morning. This is the Columbus Dispatch, the home of the Vice President-elect, J.D. Vance, a story featuring the Vice President-elect. He knows why he's here. J.D. Vance prepares to take the job as VP. And then also internationally, not the front page, but this is the website from the Telegraph. And the United Kingdom, Inauguration Day 2025, Trump to announce, quote, revolution of common sense, an optimistic speech. This is from the picture you're looking at is from last night. The Village People performing as part of those events at Capital One. So that's how the world and the United States taking various looks at today's Inauguration Day. We're giving you looks as well with information. And with that, here's John McCardle.
Pedro, we've been monitoring the social media feeds of members of Congress. Always interesting to watch what they're focusing on big days like this on Capitol Hill, and many of them still focusing on those pardons, that last-minute pardons that Joe Biden handed out
My name is Madia. I flew in from Johannesburg. I found the flight through a social media post, Facebook to be exact.
How did you find the flight from Johannesburg to Marseille?
Very short, but comfortable. Actually better than I expected for a small charter flight.
Was there a reason why you hadn't chosen a competitor?
I think for me it was mostly about convenience and effective communication between the airline over email and messaging.
Every time I look at my mom, I see my world. I see a protector, a provider. I see a friend like no other. Sometimes I sit and wonder, how do we protect such beautiful creatures? Well, sometimes you can't, especially against things like death. The least we can do is to encourage them to take Tori funeral plan, because they take care of us when they are here, and Tori will take care of us when they are gone.
Have you ever walked into a store, tried to buy something nice for yourself, only to find, wait, do I have enough cash? Don't worry, CPay has got you covered. Ask a friend, Nzame, through CPay. First, request payment. Enter your friend's details. Confirm the details. Have them approve the request. Then, proceed to make the payment for your purchase using the merchant code provided. Confirm the payment. Now, you are well on your way to enjoying your purchase. At your convenience, you can deposit, send, and receive money using CPay while also taking care of your utility bills. CPay, seamless payments.
The countdown to the second International Political Campaigns Expo IPE 25 has begun. We are thrilled to invite you to register for the most electrifying political campaigns event of the year. This year's theme is Unlocking Voting Potential, the art of resourcing and skilling for winning campaigns. Look forward to innovative exhibits, interactive sessions with industry trailblazers, and unparalleled networking opportunities. Connect with political campaign professionals from over 26 African countries holding elections in 2025 and 2026. Gain exclusive insights into the latest trends and technologies driving political campaigns. Mark your calendar for January 23rd and 24th, 2025 and be part of the future of political campaigning. Visit www.internationalpollexpo.com to register. We can't wait to see you there.
Every time I look at my mom, I see my world. I see a protector, a provider. I see a friend like no other. Sometimes I sit and wonder, how do we protect such beautiful creatures? Well, sometimes you can't, especially against things like death. The least we can do is to encourage them to take Tari funeral plan, because they take care of us when they are here, and Tari will take care of us when they are gone.
Current custom dictates that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court administer the oath first, followed by the President's speech. William Henry Harrison delivered the longest inaugural address at 8,445 words on March 4th, 1841. John Adams' inaugural address, which totaled 2,308 words, contained the longest sentence at 737 words. In 1921, Warren G. Harding became the first president to take his oath and deliver his inaugural address through loudspeakers. In 1925, Calvin Coolidge's inaugural address was the first to be broadcast nationally by radio. And in 1949, Harry S. Truman became the first president to deliver his inaugural address over television airwaves. Most presidents use their inaugural address to present their vision of America and to set forth their goals for the nation. Some of the most eloquent and powerful speeches are still quoted today. In 1865, in the waning days of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln stated, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right. Let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt avowed, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." And in 1961, John F. Kennedy declared, "And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." When applicable, following the swearing-in ceremonies on the west front of the U.S. Capitol, the outgoing president and first lady leave the Capitol to begin their post-presidential lives. Traditionally, the president's departure takes place with little ceremony. In 1797, George Washington attended the inauguration of his successor, John Adams. With few exceptions, subsequent departing presidents followed Washington's example. Until the early 20th century, the departing president also usually accompanied the newly elected president on the carriage ride from the Capitol to the White House following the inauguration. In the early 20th century, a new tradition evolved whereby the outgoing president quietly left the Capitol immediately following the swearing-in ceremony. In 1909, after congratulating President William Howard Taft, former President Theodore Roosevelt left the Capitol for Union Station, where he took a train to his home in New York. Outgoing Presidents Coolidge and Hoover also left the Capitol for Union Station, where they traveled home by train. Outgoing Presidents Truman, Eisenhower, and Johnson left the Capitol by car. In recent years, the newly installed president and vice president have escorted their predecessors out of the Capitol after the swearing-in ceremony. The members of the JASIC gather on the stairs on the east front of the Capitol building and watch as the new vice president escorts the outgoing vice president and his spouse out of the Capitol through a military cordon. Then the new president escorts the outgoing president and his spouse through the military cordon. Since Gerald Ford's departure in 1977, the former president and first lady have traditionally left the Capitol grounds by helicopter, weather permitting. The first official actions taken by the newly sworn-in President of the United States occur in the President's room, just off the Senate chamber in the U.S. Capitol. After the departure of the former President and First Lady, the new President gathers there with aides and members of Congress to sign nominations and sometimes memorandums, proclamations, or executive orders. This tradition began in 1981 with President Ronald Reagan. Prior to that time, nominations were often submitted to the Senate on Inauguration Day without ceremony. While the tradition of an inaugural luncheon dates as far back as 1897, when the Senate Committee on Arrangements gave a luncheon for President McKinley and several other guests at the Capitol, it did not begin in its current form until 1953. That year, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, Mrs. Eisenhower, and 50 other guests of the JASIC dined on creamed chicken, baked ham, and potato puffs in the now restored Old Senate Chamber. From the mid-19th century to the early 20th century, presidents left the Capitol after the swearing-in ceremonies and traveled to the White House for a luncheon prepared by the outgoing president and First Lady. In 1949, Secretary of the Senate Leslie Biffle hosted a small lunch for President Truman in his Capitol reception room. They dined on South Carolina turkey, Smithfield ham, potato salad, and pumpkin pie. In 1953, the JASIC began its current tradition of hosting a luncheon for the president, vice president, and their spouses, Senate leaders, the JASIC members, and other invited guests. At the inaugural luncheon in 1981, newly sworn-in President Ronald Reagan announced the release of 52 American citizens who had been held hostage in Iran for 444 days. The luncheon often features cuisine reflecting the home states of the new president and vice president, or the JASIC chairman, as well as the theme of the inauguration. The program includes speeches, gift presentations from the JASIC, and toasts to the new administration. After the conclusion of the inaugural ceremonies and the luncheon, the president and vice president traditionally make their way to the East Front steps of the Capitol, where they will review military troops before leading a procession of ceremonial military regiments, citizen groups, marching bands, and floats down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House for the inaugural parade. The inaugural ceremonies may be a routine event, but it remains a unique symbol of our constitutional system. Today, as we celebrate the inauguration of our next President of the United States, we signal to the rest of the world that we are united as a people behind an enduring republic.
Welcome again to the 60th inaugural ceremonies. If you're just joining us, my name is Emily Boisvert, and I am joined by my colleague, Ron Jackson. We are both visitor guides at the United States Capitol Visitor Center. That was a great video, Ron. What did you think?
Pointed video, specific. It states the purpose, why we're here. And it leads to a trivia question that we're going to have very shortly.
We'll see how people are paying attention.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Purpose of JASIC, purpose of us. Wonderful.
Yeah, I was struck at how technology has changed so much. Here we are, we're live streaming on the internet, something that, past presidents would even know what we were talking about. But okay, ready, trivia question. You ready, Ron? Okay.
I'm ready.
Whose inauguration was the first to be broadcast on radio?
Repeat the question.
Whose inauguration was the first to be broadcast on radio?
Do I have an A, B, or C? Are you giving me options?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. A, Calvin Coolidge. B, FDR. C, Millard Fillmore. Or D, President Kennedy.
A.
You are correct. Ding, ding, ding.
22 million people heard that broadcast for the first time. His vice president was Charles Dawes of Georgia. And as a matter of fact, President Coolidge would make 40 more addresses via the radio. But I think if you're a certain age, you would instantly think of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It's tough to mention Franklin Delano Roosevelt without mentioning Anna Eleanor Roosevelt as First Lady. But that's almost 100 years ago. It happened March of 1925.
Yeah, the 35th inaugural ceremonies.
You mentioned about this medium of broadcast. 1901 is when we start to see images, and people love inaugurations. I want to be specific. Where do inaugurations happen? The People's Building. There are some exceptions, but it's important. It happens here, the Capitol, not the Supreme Court, not the White House. the People's Building.
Right. And I think here we're getting ready for the rotunda. This has been transformed to be able to host the inauguration. I mean, I'm used to seeing it with thousands of eighth graders, but today it's set up for this very solemn and important event of the transfer of power from one presidential administration to the next.
Expect a voice from the Military District of Washington to introduce all the ceremonial rituals that we'll see. The selected guest only. Again, certainly feel for the thousands, tens of thousands that expected to be here to witness this in person on our West Front. But again, whether it is not, I mean, this picture that you see looks favorable, but look at the wind chills. As a matter of fact, walking in this morning, it was an icy walk. I approached the Capitol in darkness. So, here's the view of the rotunda again.
And I think we can just listen in. I think they're playing right now. Yeah, so the Marine Band looks like they're on the left-hand side of the screen. It is a tradition that they come to inaugurations. It started with Thomas Jefferson. They think that that's the first time that the Marine Band ever performed at an inauguration, and also that President Jefferson is the one who really gave them the moniker, the President's Own Marine Band.
President William Jefferson Clinton had a quote about the Marine Band. He said there's a lot of things in Washington he won't miss, but one thing he will miss: the Marine Band.
Yeah, and I can see why. I mean, these are professionals. Look at the pageantry in their uniforms. I mean, it's always a treat when we get to hear them play.
Emily, can you imagine if they were outside, wind instrument, your lips on a trumpet, on a flute?
Yeah. Those brass instruments, they can freeze up really fast. So I bet they're happy that they're inside today.
You mentioned earlier in the broadcast about President Truman being to the right of the George Washington statue. President Truman had the first broadcast, right, in terms of television. That happened in 1947. This is one of our new statues that we have.
From Missouri.
Missouri, yes. On his left hand, when you arrive in the rotunda, get closer to him, look at, make your eyes work. That's a phrase I use to students all the time. Make your eyes work. Look at every part of a statue, their hands, their feet, their expression. It's wonderful. That rotunda floor is made of Virginia sandstone, the same sandstone as the walls.
Right, and I think we're going to go, maybe some people are starting to arrive. So I'm hoping to see who's coming. We're definitely still setting up, but people are going to trickle in as we go through this. So we'll get to see that as well, hopefully. Oh, yep, here we go.
It's interesting, President Reagan's inauguration, 1985, so many were standing. If you look at the footage of it, so many, just about all. We'll talk about John Stennis from Mississippi earlier, who was seated. He was recovering from an illness. But look at this moment as the first group arrive.
Earlier you were talking about the Capitol Dome and how it's made out of cast iron. Imagine all of the work that goes into the upkeep of the Capitol, and that's all done by our big boss, the architect of the Capitol.
Tremendous job.
Yep, and the Capitol Dome has had a couple of restorations over the years. The most recent one was in 2016, but they also just finished this whole restoration of the stone on the outside of the Capitol. I mean, some of it is from the sandstone that you were just mentioning is also on the outside of the Capitol, kind of in the middle of the building. But then on the bigger wings with the pediments, that's all marble from Lee, Massachusetts.
Yes.
I have a lot of Massachusetts facts. I know Ron's from Kentucky. I'm from Massachusetts. And we each have our own, we each have our own special facts about where we're from.
Let's listen to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln Choir, please.
Sound of me singing with you, and each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices. This is the sound of voices. This is the sound of voices. Sing together in harmony, surrendering to mystery. This is the sound of voices. This is the sound of voices. This is the sound of us, singing above in the resolute house. The rest behind in certain lies. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. One people, one voice, song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. One people, one voice, song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of all of us. Singing by the resolute stars, leave the rest behind.
That was, I mean, just gorgeous. From the University of Nebraska. That is so hard to do, to change how you're going to stand for a performance like that. I'm a singer, and I've done many performances in all different types of places. That was amazing. That song was One Voice by Ruth Moody. And now I think we're going to see some people arrive, maybe. We're back on the East Front. So hopefully some people are going to start showing up pretty soon.
Our former vice presidents are approaching now. Remember, this will be the inauguration of the 50th vice president, J.D. Vance from the state of Ohio. The vice president is president of the Senate. Again, this angle provided for us by JASIC depicts the Senate side of the Capitol. We expect to see former vice presidents arriving shortly. That was a wonderful rendition. We love music, and see the pan shot here that's getting the entire campus. Well, I shouldn't say when we say East Front, we're talking the area across from the Library of Congress and the modern day Supreme Court. So oftentimes we say East Front, and someone might say, well, could you be more specific? And I'm hoping that that helps.
Yeah, and we've been mentioning JASIC a couple of times, and we said it at the top, but we'll repeat it again, that JASIC stands for the Joint Committee on Congressional Inaugural Ceremonies. That is quite a mouthful, and that's why we say JASIC. And I think we have a little bit more information from the members of JASIC, specifically the chair of this inauguration's JASIC committee, Amy Klobuchar. So we'll be watching that.
The peaceful transfer of power is at the heart of our democracy. It reaffirms that ours is and always will be a government of, by, and for the people. The inaugural ceremonies are one of our most iconic traditions, where we recognize our democracy and the sacred values that tie us together in front of millions of people across the country and around the globe. The tradition of the inaugural ceremonies at the Capitol dates back to when Thomas Jefferson took office in the old Senate chamber in 1801. It was almost 8 years after President George Washington first laid the cornerstone of the building in 1793, and only one wing of the building had been completed at the time. Over time, the ceremony was moved to the east side of the building and later to the west front for President Ronald Reagan's inauguration in 1981. Through the years, our dedication to the continuity of our government has remained the same, and today we carry the torch forward yet again. The inaugural ceremonies are the culmination of nearly 250 years of our great American experiment in democracy. Our founding fathers intended for the stability of the country to be rooted in the will of the people. Whether or not our candidate wins, we as a nation recognize that when the president-elect raises his right hand and takes the inaugural oath of office, that signifies the peaceful transfer of power. That's what this ceremony is all about. Since George Washington was sworn in as our first president in 1789, the inaugural ceremonies have taken place every 4 years through times of peace, prosperity, and adversity. Today, we gather at the Capitol, a beacon of freedom, to fulfill the Constitution's promise to protect our enduring democracy for generations to come.
"175 years ago, one former senator and Secretary of State summarized the theme of our 2025 presidential inauguration. He said, "The Constitution of the United States was made not merely for the generation that then existed, but for posterity, unlimited, undefined, endless, perpetual posterity. Our Constitution established this country as a shining city upon a hill, the first nation founded upon an idea, Our Constitution realized the founders' vision of a government striving to protect each person's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our Constitution revolutionized America. It revolutionized the world. It was the first of its kind. In many ways, our Constitution was for the generation who wrote it. But more than that, it was for the generations that followed. It is for us today, and it is for our descendants, the generations that will follow us. The Constitution enshrined our inalienable God-given rights. It immortalized America's commitment to justice and to liberty for all, and the democracy that keeps those ideals alive. After all, the Constitution begins with we the people. Today's inauguration continues the traditions that have upheld our nation and its peaceful transfer of power for almost 2.5 centuries. The theme of the 60th inaugural ceremonies is Our Enduring Democracy, a constitutional promise. Like I said earlier, that theme was described 175 years ago, a decade before the Civil War. But most significantly, it was described at our founding. It is described in our very own Constitution, established to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. This 60th inauguration, only the second time a president has been sworn in for a second time, marks another milestone in securing those blessings for ourselves and the generations to come. May we not forget the rich significance of our peaceful transfer of power today. And may today renew our commitment to the American Constitution and to the American people.
Welcome back to the 60th inauguration. You are looking presently at the east front of the United States Capitol. We look forward to welcoming the children of President George Bush. You see the camera zooming in. What a wonderful video. We just heard from Senator Deb Fisher from Nebraska, the chair of CHASIC, Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. So as we continue to zoom in towards the east front, the buildup continues. I know it's noon that the oath of office is rendered, but there's so much to see prior to this on a rather beautiful but cold day.
Right. You can see the ice is still on the lawn out there. A lot of work goes into making sure that all of these surfaces are safe for everyone to walk on. And hopefully we'll get to see former President Bush arrive fairly shortly.
There is a tree that his father planted to Lamar Smith from Texas. I'm a huge fan of our Capitol grounds. So when we talk about names, sometimes I'm going to reference trees. You'll hear that throughout the broadcast. And the type of tree, I know. Like there's a white ash to Speaker Sam Rayburn. It's not far. Matter of fact, there is a tree to Senator Edward Kennedy just to the left. Actually, you can see it in this camera range now. Yep, that tree just to the left of the brick wall here.
Oh, and here they are. Here's, this is, I believe, former President Bush and Mrs. Bush, Laura Bush. They're arriving now, coming around to the carriage door. I mean, carriage door, because at one point people arrived by carriages, right?
Yes.
And so they'll be coming in over on the Senate side of the building in just a few minutes, I think.
I love that Laura and George Bush President, they met at the undergraduate library. Right?
Well, she was a librarian.
You're right. She was a librarian.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep. President Bush, he served 2 terms in office. Right?
Yes, yes.
starting in 2001. I don't know. Could I go back that far? That was 20 years ago.
I tell you, his inauguration wasn't exactly warm that day as well, at least the first one, as I recall. Look at everyone. Now, this is our first look at the House side of the Capitol. Our camera views focused on the Senate side. This extension happened in 1857. So for those that have watched a State of the Union or an address in the House chamber, that chamber is December 16th, 1857.
Yeah, from this angle, you can really see the difference between the two types of stone as well. The older stone that is painted sandstone, and then the lovely marble on the other side. But you get a really good view of how the Capitol has been put together through time. But it looks seamless.
Yes. Emily, we have another trivia question for everyone.
We do.
Okay. How many swearing-in ceremonies have occurred on the east front of the Capitol? Again, when we say east front, we're talking about if you're coming from the Library of Congress or the Supreme Court, looking back at the Capitol, how many inaugural swearing-ins have occurred on the east front? Can I give people numbers?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, give me.
Okay. Here we go.
Give me a list.
A, 14. B, 24. C, 26. Just to throw you off. D, 34.
Well, I read this last night, so I know it's 34. I know it's 34 happened on this side of the building over time.
The point being is this is what a lot of people are used to seeing. Again, if you're a certain age, this side is, my goodness, all of the building is historic, but this is memorable for a lot of people. For President Kennedy, we could go Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Not all of them, but
right. I mean, I think being the history nerd that I am, the picture of the inauguration I think of this side of the building is Lincoln's. I mean, I mentioned him before, but I'll mention him again.
Frederick Douglass, who attended the second inauguration of President Lincoln.
Right.
That's when I arrived.
And, they're still building the Capitol, the new dome, when they had Lincoln's inauguration on this side of the building. So we've had inaugurations under all sorts of circumstances. And yet, there is a transfer of power, this enduring democracy that the two senators were talking about. It all goes on. And I mean, I saw another car come in, but I don't know who's arriving at the moment. But we will definitely see more and more people as we go through. While I'm looking at this, I'm looking at those lanterns.
Oh, sure.
And this landscape was done by Frederick Law Olmsted. If you think, oh, maybe I've heard of his name before, you might have heard of him because he's the one who designed. Ron, you're the expert.
Oh,
Central Park.
Central Park. Every college campus from Maine to the state of Georgia, Iowa State. There's a tree. Yes, there's a tree named after Frederick Law Olmsted, not far from this area. You'll have to come and take our Capitol grounds tour. Not in January, for goodness sakes, in May and June. We anticipate more of dignitaries approaching, more families. Just think about when their day started this morning, with some of them with the prayer breakfast, some with at St. John's Church, which is historic, just across from Lafayette Park. So again, this build up continues.
Yeah, and I think here we go. Yes, this is the Trump family arriving now.
That's hard to believe. The 2017 inauguration of Vice President Pence and President Trump, it was 48 degrees. You remember that, Emily? It rained. You remember it rained at least part of that day. And although I must say, people are walking as if it's not exactly recreational weather out there, but
they're walking swiftly,
ambitiously.
When I was looking at the inaugural movie that we saw before, the thing I noticed was how tiny Barron Trump was, because he was just a little boy.
Well, not now.
Not now.
No,
Yep, now he's in college. And so looks like some folks are getting out of the cars now. But yeah, I believe all of the president's elect children, all of his children are attending today. It's a big event for families, real pinnacle moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're just watching
They are
them
moving
coming
quickly.
in.
That's a
Yeah. There they are walking inside. Yeah.
reacting to the person in the brown overcoat, moving swiftly.
Hmm.
That's like 2017. So this is something they're familiar with. This is
Right. So I think in the green, that's Ivanka. Ivanka Trump.
this fastest. Yeah.
Yes. Lovely green jacket. We have
There's
more
someone
family
in black
members
that I
coming in.
just missed. They're doing this rather quickly. That's rather impressively.
Yep, all of this, of course, timed so that we can get to the noon swearing in ceremony. And yeah, more and more people arriving as we keep on talking, and they're going to fill up the rotunda. Hundreds of people in the rotunda today and in Emancipation Hall, which is in the Capitol Visitor Center. Capitol Visitor Center is right underneath that plaza that you see. So there we go. There's the rotunda. Everybody will take their seats in there.
I'd like to hear more from the choir. I was rather impressed.
Yeah. Yeah, the choir is a joint choir. Senator Fisher, we just heard from, she's from Nebraska, and so she asked them to come and talk, to sing for the inauguration because she's on the joint committee, and I think they did a really great job, considering they had to change everything at the last minute, like everyone else. Because we're honoring the request of the president-elect to hold the ceremonies inside this year, because as we've been talking about, it's cold outside.
There's going to be I can promise you, a stirring rendition by Lee Greenwood. I can recall my years at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I think the first time I heard Lee Greenwood was 1986. And he sang God Bless America. There was, I can't remember the field, but a lot of people have heard this rendition via television, perhaps radio. There is nothing like it in person. And so not just the words, but look at his expression, look at everyone that's around, and you will be moved. This is one of our great moments of an inauguration. Music. I can recall last inauguration, Garth Brooks, who rented the national anthem, just literally came in from the East Front, went through the West Front, down to the platform, and then shook someone's hand and walked away. It's just, so expect a moment here for Mr. Lee Greenwood singing "God Bless America."
I think that that's going to be in a little while, but before that, I heard that some more people are arriving.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I think former vice presidents are going to start to arrive next. So we're waiting on that. But I agree with you. Music is a very important part of the inauguration, and I'm looking forward to all of the performances that we're going to hear today.
Friends, let's hear from the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and Steve Scalise, respectively, from Louisiana. I think you'll be touched by this video as well.
The history of the inauguration is in part a history of our people and our government. On our first inauguration day in 1789, church bells rang and ceremonial cannons were fired to celebrate George Washington becoming president. Every inauguration is a reminder that the people, and not just one man, are the ones ultimately in charge. I've experienced firsthand 2 inaugurations live, and they're such special events. Regardless of policies and politics, an inauguration represents a new moment in America as we honor a time-cherished tradition. There's reverence and a sense of togetherness, and that's what our country needs. I really believe President Trump will do a phenomenal job, and we all know the presidency is bigger than even just one man. It takes all of us for the country to succeed, and the American people are the smartest, hardworking, and most generous people in all of the world. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. And with a great president and the great American people, I truly believe our country can soar to new heights. The inauguration also reminds us of the importance of faith. Every president has taken the oath of office using a Bible. After George Washington was sworn in, he kissed the Bible where he placed his hand. Calvin Coolidge, Ulysses Grant, Benjamin Harrison, so many other presidents did the exact
Countdown
same
to
thing.
the second International Political Campaigns Expo, IPE 25, has begun. We are thrilled to invite you to register for the most electrifying political campaigns event of the year. This year's theme is Unlocking Voting Potential, the art of resourcing and skilling for winning campaigns. Look forward to innovative exhibits, interactive sessions with industry trailblazers, and unparalleled networking opportunities. Connect with political campaign professionals from over 26 African countries holding elections in 2025 and 2026. Gain exclusive insights into the latest trends and technologies driving political campaigns. Mark your calendar for January 23rd and 24th, 2025, and be part of the future of political campaigning. Visit www.internationalpollexpo.com to register. We can't wait to see you there.
Arena, as of course it is a very chilly day. So unfortunately, the hundreds of thousands of individuals who made the journey to the U.S. Capitol to watch as history unfolds as Donald J. Trump is sworn in as the 47th president. Unfortunately, the outside ceremony not happening, but you can already see that thousands of people are packing inside Capitol Run Arena to watch this via the screens. We also know that Trump will then, after being sworn in as president, make his way inside the arena to deliver additional remarks to those as well. And once again, I do want to bring in my colleague Andrew Kraft as we continue our live coverage here. And you can see that lawmakers, Andrew, are arriving there inside Capitol Hill as, arrivals do continue. As we continue to discuss all of this, what are your thoughts as we continue to watch this unfold? Truly historic in nature right there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You're seeing the former speakers of the House there, McCarthy, Boehner, and Gingrich. So that's always interesting to see them kind of commingling together. Of course, Republican political powerhouses, all three of them really in their own right there. But I just want to go back. Our viewers were just watching that really incredible, somewhat tense scene, I think, between the Bidens and the Trumps. And you just kind of have to get into the head of Trump, into the head of Biden. These are longtime political foes. We know that they cannot stand each other. On the surface, yes, they exchanged pleasantries. They had a short conversation. They took the photo here. But the 2020 election and the 2024 election were very hard-fought contests. We know Trump did not even attend the inauguration of Joe Biden. Of course, things look a lot different this time around. And right now, as we speak, they are having tea together in the White House. And that goes to what Jim Robidault was saying, that this is what this day is about, the peaceful transition of power. You set all that aside, no matter how hard it is in your marrow and in your bones, that you might be thinking to yourself, if you're Biden or Trump, or even Harris with Vance, because electoral defeats are very painful, but you put all that aside for today, one day only. And I think that's what Jim was alluding to. That's what this country is all about. That's what makes us unique. He called it, and many have called it, a miracle, so to speak. So I just wanted to note that there. Of course, we know President-elect Trump's relationship with former House Speaker McCarthy. You'll remember, Stephanie, in the wake of the January 6th Capitol attack, mere days, if not weeks afterward, Kevin McCarthy went down to Mar-a-Lago. And that was really seen as a game-changing moment. That was seen as a moment that was rehabilitating Trump's image in the wake of the January 6th Capitol attack, that there were going to be fellow Republicans who will still stand by him and forgive him for January 6th. So I thought that was interesting. McCarthy, we know how that unfolded for him. He lost the gavel. His own fellow Republicans, 8 of them, ousting him from the speakership now a little bit over a year ago. And so he's on hand. There's going to be a lot of people on hand in the Capitol Rotunda. But that's what I'm thinking of right now. And just for our viewers, to give them up to speed on what's happening live right now, they are, the Bidens and the Trumps, having tea together at the White House before they ride together to the Capitol, to the Rotunda for the swearing in.
You know, and we're taking a live look, Andrew, of the White House right there as the tea ceremony is underway. And you know, it's always so interesting as we see, you know, the political rivalry, you know, front and center, you know, especially during the election cycle. And, you know, the ability for some, perhaps not all, but some of these politicians to then set that rivalry, that contentiousness aside, you know, and seeing beyond perhaps the political party and seeing the person instead. You know, as we take a look at the political landscape, you know, what do you make of that? Because we were seeing President-elect Trump and former President Barack Obama speaking with one another quite cordially at the funeral service of former President Jimmy Carter. Of course, you know, not everyone is able to, you know, put those politics aside after leaving office, after handing the baton, so to speak. You know, but one has to wonder what the conversation is like now inside the White House, as in just hours, President Biden, no longer president, and President-elect Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, and for the second time.
Right. I mean, history is contingent. Elections matter. I'm sure you have. I know I have lost contests in my personal life, minor, large, grand, small, and it's tough and it hurts. But that's what this day is about. You put those aside. You let bygones be bygones for at least a couple hours.
Absolutely. And that apparently is what they are going to do. And, you know, just to give our viewers just another look right here, I did want to share this live look right here as well, as we are taking a look outside the Capitol Hill right there, outside the Capitol building. You can see buses lining up, most likely to bring in individuals into the Capitol Rotunda. And there is the aerial view. Unfortunately, it does go in and out, as, you know, we do get these live streams from time to time, but I did want to share that with you as we continue this live look right here. You know, Andrew, as we continue to take a look at this, you know, it is so interesting to see who is in attendance, who is being joined, and you can see people from really both parties attending, as well as you know, staunch supporters. In fact, you can see some of these, Marco Rubio right there, Senator Marco Rubio, likely no longer to be that, obviously, as we have heard that Governor DeSantis has named his successor. But really the who's who right there in terms of cabinet selections.
Yeah, you're seeing all of the Trump cabinet selections get off that charter bus right there, and we can name them. We know, Stephanie, the confirmation hearings are literally happening as we speak. We saw a lot of that last week. It's going to pick up this week as well. These are the people Trump has chosen to help him lead and plan the agenda for the next 4 years. And so you see them all there, get off that charter bus. Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, and others there.
Absolutely. And I did also want to share this with our viewers, and actually we see some of the outgoing members as well, perhaps, as everyone is seated right here. So, we are awaiting the arrival of both President-elect Donald Trump and President Biden. They, of course, are having their pre-inauguration, ceremony as we continue to see, individuals trickle, but also, as we take a live look right here, this is historic in nature because this is atypical, Andrew. This is not something that we traditionally see every 4 years with the swearing-in ceremony. I did want to share this with our viewers as well. As you can see, a live look there, a larger, more extensive view of the Capitol building right there where everyone is congregating. And of course, as we have been sharing and talking about, there, of course, is a reason why when it comes to the fact that the mall is completely empty. No one is in attendance. No one is allowed to congregate there because of the frigid weather. And so I did want to share that with our viewers as well. And a beautiful live look right here. From the from the rooftop, I should say, of the Washington Monument, and this really giving us a clearer picture. We see the American flag there, waving in the wind, and the wind chill making it even feel like single digits right here as we continue to await the arrival of President-elect Trump and, of course, President Biden.
Yeah, that was a really cool shot there atop the White House. To your point, the flag's still at half staff. If we have the inside of the rotunda, we can point out some of the people that are there. I think that would be helpful for some people watching, because to your point, Stephanie, it is going to be a who's who of the federal government. It's going to be a who's who of Washington. But world leaders are also in attendance. I believe I saw the Argentinian president, Javier Milei, and other former world leaders as well. So we'll do our best pointing out these individuals, pointing out these members of Congress, former members of Congress, incoming and outgoing members of both administrations here. That's always, to your point, interesting to see who's there and who's not, who's seated next to who and who's standing maybe. But we're finally getting a live picture inside of the rotunda. We were wondering how this was all going to look because they had to pull it together so quickly. And there you see more of these individuals walking into Congress there. And if I recognize anyone, I will definitely point them out here. Looks like Tulsi Gabbard there, Vivek Ramaswamy, other members of the incoming Trump cabinet, and some of the staffers who will work in the second Trump White House. Upon confirmation, of course, there's Elon Musk.
And
maybe
Andrew,
if we can see if we can hear some of the natural sound, that's always interesting too.
It is, and we can see the inside of the rotunda as this, they continue to, weave through shots right here. But, as we take a moment to pause, I do want to bring in Rebecca Castor with Fox News as well as we continue our live coverage right here. And Rebecca, we're taking a live look from inside the Capitol Rotunda as we see lawmakers, officials, and really the who's who of Washington and the business industry, arrive ahead of this swearing-in ceremony. We see the Capitol building right there behind you as we are awaiting the arrival of President-elect Donald Trump. Security, of course, top of mind, thousands of law enforcement officers spreading out across Washington, D.C. to make sure that what happens is as seamless as possible, a hustle and bustle, if you will, ahead of the swearing-in ceremony. So, can you set the scene for us right now?
Hey, Stephanie, good morning. So, speaking with other reporters on our Fox team who have covered inaugurations here in DC in the past, they're saying that this security feels a lot more ramped up than previous inaugurations. So, even though things have moved indoors, security is still red hot. They have the Capitol building pretty much locked down like a fortress. There are miles and miles of fencing all around the Capitol building, as well as some of the nearby streets. It's really hard to travel by car here in downtown DC right now. People are saying that they've been having to walk for several miles to get to some of these locations. But yesterday, thousands of police officers from across the country arrived here in D.C. They were sworn in by the local police chief, and they have been given police powers to help out the D.C. Metro Police as well as the Capitol Police as well. They're expecting at least 19 different protests to possibly happen around the district today, so we're going to be monitoring that. We know that they're going to have drones out, also monitoring events from the sky. So if anybody is here watching locally and they see drones in the air, that is likely what they are doing, monitoring some of these events. A lot of things are going to look different today than they have in the past now that this inauguration is moving inside the Capitol. It's been 40 years since a president was sworn in inside the Capitol Rotunda. Those lawmakers that are entering now to the Capitol Rotunda, that's an exclusive invitation. We're told only about 600 people are going to be able to sit inside the Capitol to be able to watch the swearing in happen in person. There's going to be an overflow room as well. So I think there was some discussion on Capitol Hill, lawmakers lobbying to try to get the best seat in the House and to actually be there in person as opposed to that overflow room. But it's just not going to be the same event as if we would have seen Donald Trump outside on the west front of the Capitol taking the oath of office. Of course, all of these changes, primary reason is the weather. This morning, the feels like temperature was about 12 degrees. The sun is up, so it's warmed up a bit now. It feels a little bit more comfortable outside, but that decision was made with the safety in mind of the hundreds of thousands of people from all over the country who traveled to DC and we're going to congregate on the National Mall. They've actually shut that down. People that are still here are not able to even be around the National Mall today. They've locked it down because the police just don't want people gathering because of just the safety conditions out here in the weather.
All right, Rebecca, we do appreciate you sharing that with us as we continue to follow the very latest. And we did want to once again share this live look outside the Capitol Rotunda. We saw Jeff Bezos, of course, founder, CEO of Amazon, along with his fiancee, Lauren Sanchez. And I did want to raise the audio to see what we can hear as the arrivals continue at the U.S. Capitol ahead of the swearing-in ceremony. And we see former President Bill Clinton along with Hillary Rodham Clinton also in attendance right there, just posing for pictures. And we do know that, all of the living presidents will be in attendance, as well as the former first ladies, everyone except for Michelle Obama, who will not be attending, not giving any particular reason why that is. She also did not attend former President Jimmy Carter's funeral as well. As we continue truly to see the who's who, we do hear some of the music right here, so we're going to pause on the commentary and allow you to listen in.
Have you ever walked into a store, tried to buy something nice for yourself, only to find, wait, do I have enough cash? Don't worry, CPay has got you covered. Ask a friend, Nzame through CPay. First, request payment. Enter your friend's details. Confirm the details. Have them approve the request. Then, proceed to make the payment for your purchase using the merchant code provided. Confirm the payment. Now, you are well on your way to enjoying your purchase.
Right here.
At your convenience, you can deposit, send, and receive money using CPay while also taking care of your utility bills.
Likely the very last
CPay,
individuals to
seamless
depart
payments.
the White House on their way. As we were mentioning, Andrew, President Biden.
Of weeks back. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe no love lost between the two there. But we know Melania Trump really took a back seat, was almost completely absent from the 2024 campaign. Yes, she did appear at that Madison Square Garden rally in New York City. She did appear at the RNC there in Milwaukee. She did not speak at the RNC, and so it'll be interesting to see. She did take somewhat of a backseat in the Trump first term as well. In the role of First Lady, the role of First Lady that Jill Biden took was very front and center, was very prominent. Someone to even argue that she was, because of President Biden's age or alleged infirmities or alleged senility, that she was somewhat also in charge of the inner circle, so to speak. So I thought those roles were very different.
And we
we
see
now
the
have
doors,
the two
Andrew,
principals, I
opening
believe,
once
coming out.
again.
Maybe not.
I just wanted to let our viewers know we see the doors opening once again. That, of course, is Vice President-elect J.D. Vance alongside Vice President Harris. They, too, will be sharing a motorcade. And to your point, Andrew, you were mentioning it's going to be interesting to see what First Lady Jill Biden and Melania Trump will be speaking about. Now you have Vice President Harris and J.D. Vance sharing a vehicle. You know, is there going to be any sort of conversation, as they make their way to the Capitol Rotunda? We continue to talk about the political dynamics. And, it's always interesting. We see them from a distance, but truly they only know what's happening inside that vehicle, of course, alongside, Secret Service. But they, too, are departing the White House. And finally, as we pivot the view right there back to the front doors, we are expecting to see President-elect Trump and President Biden to depart shortly. I also wanted to share this look as we continue to take a look. You can see House Speaker Mike Johnson there arriving at the Capitol Rotunda, as we do see the limousine that is set to depart the White House right here. And I did just want to pause on this live look as we are expecting President-elect Trump and President Biden to be departing the White House in just a matter of moments, also sharing a singular vehicle as they make their way to the Capitol Rotunda for this historic moment, as President-elect Donald Trump is going to be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
And just to note, Stephanie, the woman in the green jacket, that was Senator Deb Fischer from Nebraska. There's this entire congressional committee known as the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies. They are tasked with putting all this on. And so that's why you saw Senator Deb Fischer there, the Republican from Nebraska. And so they are responsible for planning this, for making sure it all goes off without a hitch. And so they are instrumental in this. You're going to see them quite a lot today. And you just saw Deb Fischer there with, I believe, Usha Vance and Doug Emhoff. So wanted just to note that there as well. You also see some of these congressional leaders get there into the rotunda. You just saw Hakeem Jeffries and others, Speaker Mike Johnson. So congressional leadership looks like they are in the building now. We are waiting, to your point, President-elect Trump and President Biden. And to your point, I do hope that maybe some of the official photographers will release photos from inside the limousines of how these moments transpired, what the conversations were like. Maybe we can get some reporting as well. We do know, though, the Bidens have been somewhat gracious with the Trumps after the November 5th election. President Biden inviting Trump to the White House that very same week and committed to a peaceful transition of power. And that is what we are seeing today. And that is why this is so important. So Biden and Trump will be riding over in the Beast to the Capitol from the White House momentarily. This is really quite something. Obviously they haven't spent that much time together. They were on a debate stage twice in 2020. They were on a debate stage once in 2024. They've appeared at similar events at the same time, but I would venture to say that this is going to be the closest in proximity they have been for the longest duration, maybe ever. And so you just have to wonder what those conversations are going to be like. These political rivals, political foes, from all reporting suggests they literally cannot stand each other. And I think a lot of the viewers forget that after Biden sought not to seek re-election after the debate in June in Atlanta, where he withdrew from the ticket, the Trump campaign had a difficult time adapting and adjusting to the fact that he was not going to be the rival. It was going to be someone else, and here they are.
And as the limousine departs right there, we actually saw President-elect Trump on his cell phone, Andrew, just checking some stuff. But we were hearing one of the reporters yelling out to both Biden and Trump, "What are you going to talk about?" And obviously they did not answer. But of course, that's the question that everyone wants to know. What will these gentlemen be speaking about? They, of course, were joined by Representative Amy Klobuchar, who, is part of the committee that oversees the inauguration and all of the conversation going to be, and perhaps you do, just how many minutes it's going to take for the limousine to actually arrive at the Capitol. But it could either be a very long ride or it could be a very short and comfortable ride. We don't know.
Yes, it is a very short ride, under 10 minutes. And yeah, you saw there Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, the Democrat, another member of this joint congressional committee on inaugural ceremonies. And so she's also in the limousine. Maybe she'll be breaking the ice, so to speak, between Trump and Biden. But this leads me to wonder as well, Stephanie, what is the Biden post-presidency going to look like? We know they're going to be, they being Joe and Joe Biden, they'll be spending a couple of days in Santa Barbara, California. After today, they'll be whisked off there to the West Coast. We know Trump is going to the West Coast later this week on Friday to survey some of the damage wrought by the LA wildfires. So they may be in California at the same time as well. But a post-presidency looks different, so to speak, if you're Obama and you're leaving the White House in your 50s. Biden leaving the White House in his early 80s. I wonder how he will choose to use that. He said in a speech in South Carolina just yesterday, he is going to remain engaged. He is going to remain committed. He's not going anywhere. So I think it remains to be seen what his role in American political life will be going forward. You know, sometimes presidents, all presidents, when they leave the White House, they go back to being everyday regular citizens. But some take up a role and they want to be, and they want to use their influence that they had in the Oval Office, even while not in the Oval Office. Jimmy Carter was a perfect example of that. And so you're watching the beast right now move down Pennsylvania Avenue, down to the U.S. Capitol. This is quite something. This is remarkable. Let's just watch and listen.
All right, it does appear perhaps as though this live look right there, foes. Andrew, obviously this, this is coming from one of the vehicles as part of this motorcade. It does look like they are trying to get it back, but and it does look like they have. We're just going to hang on this. It looks like they have fixed this issue. Let's listen in.
Yes, Stephanie, of course, we're moving down Pennsylvania Avenue right now, and you can just hear the cheers from so many of these supporters who have lined the streets there, and you can see them on the sides waving It is very, very cold. We're now passing the National Gallery of Art, if you're familiar with Washington. We do apologize about the feed. It looks a little bit in and out there, but we're going to stay with it. But the motorcade moving now, both President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump inside alongside Senator Amy Klobuchar in there. So I said this is about under 10 minutes, and we're going to be moving up to the U.S. Capitol in just no time here. But you can see the security. You can see there some of the troops standing guard, saluting the motorcade as it moves past. And now I believe we're going to be right outside the U.S. Capitol momentarily. And so this is really, really remarkable. We're not going to, and it has been reported, we're not going to see your typical inauguration parade, down Pennsylvania Avenue because it is so cold. President-elect Trump will be visiting his throngs of thousands of supporters at Capital One Arena, much like the rally he had yesterday. And that is where people are watching it live inside that arena, thousands of them. And that is probably why you're not seeing as many people line the streets. There's hardly anyone on the National Mall because, one, it's inside the rotunda, the swearing in, the oath. And two, it's just too cold there. And we've heard from some of Trump's folks, including incoming White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, saying that this was not done for security reasons. This was done to protect his people, Trump's people. Though there are some security analysts and experts that we've even talked to here on Live Now who argue that this could have been made with that in mind, that decision could have been made with that in mind. Let's keep watching this motorcade.
sir. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Thank you.
President Trump, how do you feel? President Biden?
Well,
And there we saw President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump arriving at the Capitol. We see Elon Musk there, Andrew, just one of the tech titans, as you know, we were discussing as we await the official swearing-in ceremony. There is Melania Trump right there, First Lady Jill Biden, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, and others as they continue to make their way inside the rotunda for that actual swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah, and interesting, the Vances seem to be kind of trailing behind, leading the pack from behind, so to speak. I thought that was interesting there. You see J.D. Vance and Usha Vance coming into the rotunda there. Biden and Trump kind of walking somewhat stone-faced there. Biden, when asked, how's it going, he said, well, he and Trump side by side, in unison, in tandem, walking in with Vice President Kamala Harris behind. And you can just feel the emotions in the room. I think it's so interesting that, and that's what's so unique and so miraculous about the American experiment, is that political foes, political losers and winners alike can be in the same room. You see the Republican mega donor there, Miriam Adelson. You see UFC chairman Dana White. This is part of the Trump invitation list, so to speak. I'm going to be doing my best to point out some of these individuals, but you also saw there Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, speaking with Elon Musk as well. So, Stephanie, we're just waiting for President-elect Trump, President Biden, and all the